Hi, welcome everyone. This is a discussion on convention booths, and now I am a giant person on the screen. So that'll be nice. My name is Baron Celric. I am a Master of Order of Defense, and I have spearheaded or helped to run the AwesomeCon event in DC for the last 8 of their 10 years. This year is their 10th anniversary, and we have been presenting there we've had a booth there for 8 of them. I don't have many handouts, so you get to look at my gorgeous morning face for the majority of this, but I want to be clear that at any time you can ask a question and I will elaborate on things. It doesn't do me any good to talk around something that you need further explanation on or want more details on that I gave less than you need. This is a class and that's what it's for. All right, so this is, if you guys can see that, which is, thanks. This is the first year that we were at this convention. You can see that for the most part, only really 2 people gave anything to the booth itself. Lots of that stuff was provided by the convention. The tables were provided. This, I don't know if you can see the cursor, but this tablecloth was not, and I'll get into that a little bit later. We had a couple banners. We had some, these are baronial thrones that we stepped up into at the time. A couple of pieces of armor from someone who had them, a shield and their main arm of equipment, a box. This is a television with a computer looping the SCA promotional demo video. And that's pretty much all we had. We had a clipboard with a sign up that people could put their email on if they wanted to get further information. And that was pretty much it. After that, stop sharing. After that, we went to work and decided that we needed and that we could do a lot better of a presence if we did a couple of things different. You should be able to see that. This is not last year's, but the year before last year's setup. Now, there are a couple of key differences that you'll see. One, we have more space, which is pretty obvious. We also have an end, which allows you to get more foot traffic by your space. We incorporated a list fence so that we could hang banners and more things off of them. We got some infrastructure, which is these wire racks. And we did a good job trying to showcase as many things as possible to bring in as many people with diverse ideas as we could. We also had, in addition to this, we also had 2 classes. One of them was a dance class that was attended by roughly 120 people in a giant convention-like room. And one of them was a fencing class, and that was equally well attended. I didn't think we would get that many people for a fencing 101 type class, but AwesomeCon, like many conventions that you guys will probably be wanting to provide a booth at or provide promotional materials or demonstrations at, are almost entirely peopled by nerds, and they love that stuff, especially if they can lightly touch it, see what it's all about, and then put it back down. We didn't have 100 swords to go around, but we stepped through a bunch of footwork drills and some arm point control drills, and we actually got 4 fencers in the local area out of that. Just that 1 hour, 6 people, and we got four fencers out of it. So this event is pretty worthwhile for us. And it branches out into everywhere. Now, if you're not familiar with, does anyone have any questions? By all means, if you have questions, put them in the chat and I will get to them as they come up. So if you're not aware of the convention that I'm talking about, AwesomeCon in DC has about 50,000 people in attendance. 50,000 people. Most conventions are not that big. We're not talking about a really, really big one, like a Comic-Con, New York, or wherever it is in California. Those are enormous. Dragon Con, I think, is bigger than that, but they're in Georgia and they have some other issues. For us, with 50,000 people going there, the convention in their first year, they had about, are you getting those or do I admit people? Do you get a boost space? Yeah, so we'll be going over that. That's coming up in just a second. So with the first year that AwesomeCon was there 10 years ago, they only had about 7,000 people come through their door. And they wanted to, and this is the DC convention. This is where political rallies are held. Like, it's a huge space with tons of area just on the regular floor. And then there's other rooms all over the place that you can do. And they're convention sized rooms that can house, 100 people standing and doing things, or like 200 people sitting. Like, they're enormous places. So they decided that they were going to reach out to nonprofit groups and special interest groups and offer promotional booths. That's what we have. So basically, we are a guest of theirs. They give us a form to fill out, and then we get the booth for free. We still have to man it the whole time, so there is some outlay. And I will say that after the first year, most of the demos that I have gone to in the 30 years I have been in the SCA were very similar to that first picture I showed. And if you're just joining and you don't remember the picture, I can pop that out again so that you can see what I am talking about. Some of them are better than this. Most of the ones I've done on colleges are very spare because very few people actually bring their stuff. This has no people in it. So once it's got some participants in garb with their regalia on, it does look a little better. Mostly because the people there are also in it, part of the display. So most of the time I see things like that. And honestly, there are a lot of promotional booths at this event that are similar. Even after 10 years, they haven't really updated their things. They have one cool set piece. And then the things that they do around the periphery are other things that they, try and promote. For instance, when we set up this past year, two years ago, we came in with eight people for setup, I believe, and we got it up within our 4-hour time slot. It takes a while to set up and make sure everything is zip tied down. I'll go over zip ties later. That gets its own chapter. And the guy next to us was a sci-fi cosplay thing. And they came in with a duffel bag, one guy with a duffel bag put his duffel bag underneath the table, looked at us, and said, "Well, I'm done," and left, because all his stuff was in that duffel bag and he just spread it out on the table, and that was that. Most people don't expect much interaction. They just want to showcase their special interest, and then that's it. We use this for recruiting. Most other people look at it as, look at the cool special interest thing I'm doing, and then that's the end of it. So the question was, do you get a booth space for free, which is true, and does our organization pay for the booth? Now, our organization does have an outlay, our barony does have an outlay of money for the booth in the form of electricity that we have to pay for, and any additional passes that are required outside the ones that we already get for free. Promotional booths at AwesomeCon come with 4 free badges per 10-foot space. This is a 20-foot space, so we got 8 free badges for the weekend to give to people. It doesn't have their name on it. We can trade them off with other people, and we did that the first year. If you run a demonstration, like the dancing demonstration or a fencing class, then you are allotted exhibitionist passes, which are also good for the entire weekend, and you get up to 6 of those per demo. So last year we had 20 badges to go around. That's 20 volunteers. And I'll get into some of this in the second hour, which is more of a behind the scenes, how we deal with that. But one thing I'll say now is that most people look at a demonstration, maybe not you, Chatelaines, and maybe not seneschals, but a lot of regular SCA lay people look at demonstrations as the lightest touch on the SCA, and therefore requiring the lightest amount of work. What it actually is an event that doesn't have any participants who are members. You still have all the staff that you need. You still have an autocrat. You still have workers that do stuff. You still have everything else that is required, communications. You have a lot of back-end things. And like I said, we'll go over those later. But the misconception that a demonstration, that a demo, especially a booth at a large event, is easy is a little bit of a misnomer. I saw your thumbs up. I appreciate that. Vindication. So this year, so I guess one other back end thing I'll talk about is dealing with the convention personnel. Most Scadians are charismatic to one form or another. If you yourself are not charismatic, that's okay. Don't be in charge. You can be a whiz at making sure everybody gets there, making sure all the stuff gets there. You can be an amazing coordinator, but don't be in charge. Let the person be in charge who has a high charisma score. Why? Because you are basically there as a guest of this convention, whether you're paying for the booth or not. And in order to get upgrades, you have to be nice to people, or you should be nice to people. Most people, however, and this is always shocking to me, most people are not nice to people. Most people who are there getting their free promotional booths want to get their stuff seen. They don't want to be set in the back or in the middle of a couple other niche things, especially if those are related to any big IP like Star Wars or like any of the comic books, zombies, some of the larger anime franchises, although I don't know what those are myself, not being really an anime person. Don't leave my class or block me. So they always get a large space and a draw. This year, I believe that we have negotiated with them an island, which is basically a 20 by 30 foot space. And not only will that give us all the badges that we could ever need, but that means we don't have anybody on any side. We have full control over everything that happens inside the booth. We can put more people in there without it feeling crowded. There are some issues. I don't know if everybody can see the question that came in, but basically, how do you decide who from the SEA participates? So my notes on the second class, specifically for staffing, say that oh no, we're going to go over staffing demographics later in this class. You're too soon, JC. All right. So if that answers everybody's questions on the space, does anybody have any questions on the space itself? I'm going to say no and move on. Type it in if you have any. So elements of engagement is what I labeled this next section, and we're doing pretty good on time. My wife tells me that the only thing you guys are going to remember are the first things I mentioned or the last things I mentioned, and nothing in the middle. But the first thing I'm going to mention is that SCA video. The SCA put out a promotional video that is pretty well done. It's very fight heavy, with a lot of armored and some rapier, a little bit of archery, and then all the ambiance that goes along with that. So, you know, obviously you can see ANS everywhere. I don't think it points out any specifically, but it's a general overview within 2 minutes with action shots, mostly taken, I think, at Penzik or some of the other wars. Sure. So the one we pulled down was the one that was on the main SCA page. If you can find another one that suits your group better, you can use it. That requires some outlay. You need electricity, and no convention that I've ever been to has free electricity. So you're going to have to pay for that in some way. Our Barony has a line item for AwesomeCon that allows us to purchase electricity. That's second hour stuff though. So the video is nice, especially if you're light on stuff. It can also help if you are on an end cap and you can put it around the side so you can draw people in on that side because it's flashy and people have ADD when they're going to conventions because there's so much to see. Anything that can catch their eye is definitely what you want to do, so they take a second look at your stuff. So the first thing is the SCA video. Whether or not you find that is a good thing or a bad thing is up to your group. You can get by with no electricity as long as people charge their phones overnight really well, because you're almost certainly going to need cell phones while you are at the event. The next thing I have is good high-end displays. Let me pull up the other. I'm not saying these are high-end. Or the highest end, I guess, is probably a better way to put it. So if you look around, you can see as many different elements as we could fit in there possibly on various. We had 3 tables. Here's a table here, here's a table here, and here's a table here. This is where the video would go. We took this at the end of the night when it wasn't running. And probably this year we wouldn't have needed it. This is the back wall of the convention here. So we were kind of on the back side, but we were still on a corner. So that was pretty good. Now, when I'm talking about high-end displays, what I mean is we have baronial scrolls. I'm sorry, we have scrolls here. None of them are baronial. I'm not dissing baronial scrolls. Some of them are incredibly well done. And if yours is incredibly well done, display it. Why? Because it looks amazing. If you have a musical instrument, you should display it. because music is a big part of the things that we do in the SCA. I have a small trebuchet right here. Why? Because little kids love trebuchets, because it's violence and little kids love childlike violence. And a tiny trebuchet is perfect for their thing. This is a spear that we happen to have hanging up. These are actual fencing gear. I'll talk about that a little later because these are zip tied to one of those upright wire wall things that conventions seem to have all over the place. The zip ties were important. You can't tell. I'm not going to point at this stupid screen again with my hand. This is garb that someone made. This is someone's really nice armor. There's a bunch of glassware over here. There are a bunch of period games over here. These are hand-painted archery banners. I'm sorry, yes, archery targets. This is a helm and a stand that people could, that was in range for people to try on. These games, this game here is Shut the Box. I'm going to talk about a couple things a little bit later, and Shut the Box is one of them. A helm is one of them. Over here is a bunch of feast gear. Oh, something just popped up on my screen, but I don't know what. So I need to stop sharing. In any case, this here in the middle is a small collapsible bookshelf, and every single piece of anything that it is displayed, from leatherwork to armor work to heraldry to woodworking, the chairs, armor, the stool, feast gear, everything has a book over here that describes it. Everything. We decided that this was important for a couple reasons. One of them was if you have a new person who ever got, I see your hand, I see a new person who ever got, as a presenter, who was lost on something to say, and a definitive person wasn't around to describe that thing, they could say, from the book. We did this from the book. We are an educational society. We base our stuff not on fantasy. I know. We base it on history, and history can be looked up in books. So if we reference everything from a book, it means that other people can find that information and use it themselves. Richard, I saw your question, but what sort of budget size is that? Are you looking at thousands of dollars? Okay, so this is, so I've been in the SCA for 30 years, and over that 30 years, oh, the electricity line item is about $100. Oh, thanks, Eve. The electricity is about $100, $120, not more than that. And again, in the second hour, we'll go over back end stuff. Electricity definitely falls under the things that you need to make this run. So in any case, yeah, stuff. I've been in the SCA for 30 years. Most of that display is mine. Well, mine or my wife's. But a bunch of other stuff wasn't. The dress wasn't. We're not that good of a sewers. That was someone who specifically does costuming, and she not only donated that really nice dress to put on a dress form, but she had another nice dress that she wore, and I think she got somebody else into another really nice dress. I could probably run the video on a tablet. Yeah, maybe. And you'd have to run it for 12 hours because an event is a long time. Usually the first day, so we set up the day before the event. We get in there. It's a Thursday. Friday is a half-day event, so people can get in there first thing in the morning and still set up. And I believe in the afternoon, and then the event itself starts at 3 and goes till about 9. Then on Saturday, I think it starts at 10 and ends at 10. And then on Sunday, I think it starts at 10 and it ends at, I want to say 5, but it could be 4. So that's a lot of time to keep things on battering. Yeah, it's definitely the way. I mean, if you are, not all baronies have the same amount of resources, and I get that. That's one of the things we're going to talk about next hour, and I keep saying that, but there's definitely some skew. If your barony is not worried about $100 to bring in people, and there is some cost benefit analysis to be done with any demo. I'm ironically to say, I'm not really a fan of demos in general. Most of the demos that the SCA is asked to do are worthless, in my opinion. If you're going to do a demo for a medieval day for a Girl Scout troop, I don't necessarily, like, we do them. It's good outreach, and that's what their purpose is, for outreach. But for recruiting, they usually don't garner anyone at all. And that is the basis that I am using to figure out whether a demonstration is good or not. And there are also, like I mentioned earlier, events, specifically events that only have staff. So all of the people that are always overlooked at every event, they're the only ones who are doing all the work here. And if your barony or group has another event, or like a real SCA event going on with actual participants that are SCA members, those are probably going to be the same people who are doing that work as well. So depending on the number of demonstrations, booths, or conventions that you guys are prescribed to, like, that can cause some burnout. And what you really don't want as a front-facing thing in front of people that you want to join the SCA is a bunch of zombie people who are burned out in what they're trying to promote. Having a booth means discussing your passion, and we'll go over things to discuss later. But I am behind time. So let me continue on. Anything that engages people hands-on. So having a big helm, not a super heavy one like for shock and awe effect, but just a helm that people can try on. Very good. People love trying on armor. Kids love trying on armor. Shut the Box is a game. If you don't know how to play Shut the Box, you can type in Shut the Box on Google and it will tell you. And it is probably one of the easiest games ever. That is, period. Children can play it super easy. Adults can play it super easy. People who are waiting in the booth for participants to show up can play it super easy. It takes no time at all. And if your Shut the Box is nice, if you have bone dice or wooden dice that you're using, you can talk about that when people come up. Would you like to try this? We have thrones. Yeah. Chainmail shirts are great. We don't have any. Everybody can kind of fit in a large helm. Chainmail, if it's large, they can fit in that too, but oof. What you can't do, however, with chainmail, and that was a great thing right there. A lot of armor that the armored guys wear can be put on over a gambeson or something else, right? It's not necessarily shirt-like material. Like, you can strap on an arm over cosplay, over Spider-Man cosplay. You can put on leg armor over garb, over some cosplay. You can definitely put on a helmet because all they have to do is take off their stuff, unless they have some weird horn thing going on. So it makes it a little bit more accessible to do that. You don't have to fully armor up someone. Whatever works for you is probably what's going to work. We have thrones. One thing, gauntlets, exactly. So one thing that we found at conventions is that the seating is rare. and people get tired feet when they are walking around on concrete floors a lot, unless they're in like a gaming section and they don't get out onto the floor. Having the thrones is fantastic. If you have the thrones situated in such a way where you can get some selfies taken, or you can take people's selfies, especially if you have banners behind them like we did. So not only do they have something to take with them, but it is a reminder that where they were. And if you have Society for Creative Anachronism behind it, or your barony, or something else that identifies your group where they can see it, that means that they can visit you just based on the selfie that they took, which is, again, another inroad. So moving on, color. We have banners, lots of banners. The SCA has banners all over the place. If you do not bring your banners to a convention booth or a demo in general, you are 100% in the wrong. 100% in the wrong. Banners are the best way to identify us from nearly every other LARP group out there. Other LARP groups do have banners. Most of them do not have personal banners. Most of them do not have group banners. They just have the identifying thing for their thing in general. So bring banners, lots of banners. Pennants, just as good. Yeah, tagging a group on social media is good too. Variety of subjects we already went by. There are a lot of cosplayers that go to conventions. Almost all cosplayers make their own stuff. So they could be looking for a way to expand their knowledge base or get with a group that allows them to cosplay all the time in a medieval theme. Behold, the SCA. We are perfectly designed to get all of those people. Nearly all of those people. Variety of subjects, live demos. Fighting, dancing, and music is what we do. Fighting, dancing, and music. We have had demonstrations at AwesomeCon for armor fighting and rapier fighting. Small plays like you would do at any demonstration, where people can watch fighting happen and then ask questions. You really need an MC to do that, like someone who can call out what's happening, call out who won if it's not super obvious, to like a layman, not to you, 30-year fighter guy. What else do I want to say about that? Dancing. Everybody loves dancing. Patches is our local dancing person, and she's here, so I'm gonna talk about her for a second. I am not necessarily a fan all the time of dancing. Personally, I know a bunch of dances because that's what being like a citizen of the SCA means, that you probably should know some dances, probably should know some games, probably should know a song or two, just to have the medieval experience. You pick stuff up. So not personally doing a lot of dancing in the SCA, I undersold the idea to myself that dancing would not be well received. I'm here to tell you that dancing is so well received that not having it as an option to get people in is doing yourself a disservice. That may be the last time you hear me say that, Patches. So I'm glad that this was videotaped for you. But no, seriously, it's like people who show up to their first event and they look at the fighting and go, man, I would love to be able to jump into something like that. And you have and you have to tell them, well, you have to go through, make sure you can do stuff. You can try on some armor, but you can't really do it. And then you look over at the archery and go, oh, but you can do archery right now. Oh, you can do thrown weapons right now. Oh, you can learn dancing right now. These are the things that anything that you can do right away, right off the bat, starts to immerse them. And once they get their feet in, if medievalness is for them, then the SCA is. Live, where did I go to? Oh, wear garb. Oh, good God. If you are in a booth, you need to wear garb. It's an event. You need to wear garb. If you're not wearing garb, then what are you even doing? Wear garb. I put this down is an obvious thing. Oh, my wife made a comment. Crossover garb. Yes. So you are at a geek event and geeks love crossover things. So as long as it strays toward, yes, not everybody does want to get into armor, except for secretly. Mute her response. No. So you are at a geek event and lots of people do crossplay the Joker and I don't know, whatever goes with the Joker as a crossover cosplay thing. We had someone who did Assassin's Creed garb in a medieval theme, right? That was perfect. Perfect. Because it got people who knew that it was Assassin's Creed and they could easily see the changes because they're used to nuance. And holy mackerel. Ooh, that's incredible. Yes, so it draws more people in. I have told my people this, to stray more toward the medieval side and less toward the fantasy side. Fantasy elements on medieval clothes is perfect. Like, if you want to look like Snow White in a medieval theme, then that's pretty close anyway, right? You're not really throwing anybody for a loop if you do that. Superheroes, same way. I don't really encourage various levels of garb. If you have super fancy stuff, you wear it. But if everybody shows up in court garb, then it seems to me that would almost feel like a barrier to entry. Look at these guys. You have to be super fancy in order to do any of their stuff, right? But having somebody there in a Viking tunic, which is basically just tunic, leg wraps, and any of the pants that go underneath, it looks medieval, it looks SCA, but it doesn't necessarily look like you spent more than 20 hours on it, or that it costs $100 in $200 in brocade fabrics. I personally don't care if people show up in whatever they want to wear, as long as they're wearing garb, because like I said, we have 20 people going in and out of that booth. So we always have kind of a churn every 2 hours. I'll go over that in the second hour a little bit. Oof, running short on time. I still have a whole page. All right, we need to move on. I'm sorry. Use the whole 3D space. Invite them into the booth. Jesus. Okay, so most conventions that you will see, they have, sorry, I went on tiptoes. Most conventions you will see, they'll have a table in the front of their booth and a bunch of stuff on it, and they will be behind it to explain anything you see in front of you. Okay, that is great for them. I always push our tables to the back wall, like you saw in the pictures, and to the sides. That way you have all that space to put all of your things on, and you can invite them into the booth to be able to see, touch, and get more information on those things. And it means that they have already sunk some cost into looking at your things. So they're more likely to remember you later on. And that's important for other reasons. Use the 3D space, go up, go out as much as you're able to. We have a 14-foot ceiling that we can, it's not a 14-foot ceiling, it's like a 50-foot ceiling, but we can only go to 14 feet without a special waiver. Do we have a banner pole that goes to 14 feet? No. but we do have several that go above everyone that is around us in eyesight. You can find us by looking for a banner. Banners, 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 banners. Live demonstrations is super useful. Like I said, that's the dancing. And adjust to the venue. Why do I have that? Oh, yeah. So some places don't allow you to carry weapons at all. Ours doesn't allow us to carry weapons, but like you saw, we had rapiers on the wall taped in. I just told them, hey, we have these swords. They're not really swords, they're sports equipment. They said, oh, sports equipment. I said, but they look like swords. So what we would like to do is put them on a wall and zip tie them. I'll go over zip ties next period. Zip ties, zip ties. And they said, oh, so nobody's going to be handling them? And I said, no. And they said, absolutely, bring those weapons right in. Armored weapons, not as big of a deal because they look like big padded pole arms. I do not disclose how dangerous they are. They look like big padded pole arms. So that's what I'm doing. I will say that the more impressive ones, like a giant bearded axe or something like that, people are familiar with those from like a LARP kind of a thing. But since you guys use them on the field, you can still talk about them. Bring them. Those are the things that are impressive. Oh, God, I don't have any time. All right. Personnel pointers. Do short shifts. Do short shifts. 2 hours, 1 hour, trade people out. 2 hours, trade people out if you can. You can talk about your passions forever with different people. And that's great. That's exactly what you should do. The SCA is built from the bedrock of passion. And you should be able to talk about the thing that you love and the parts of it that you love. Please only talk about the parts of it that you love. When you aren't on shift, go away. Go to other booths and look around. Enjoy the rest of the stuff around you. I will tell you that the year we went with our small child and put him in small child garb, which is always adorable, but a handful. We walked around to other places and we found the, what is it? The like medieval times table. And they were there and they looked like the boredest, most saddest knights who ever had to attend an event because their contract told them they needed to. That has ever happened at an event. They didn't have any banners, which was weird. They had 3 people. One of them was a lady dressed up. 2 of them were knights who sat behind a table. They did not look open to anything. We went by and mocked them in our regalia, lightly mocked them, trying to get them to come by our booth, which they did not because they were only contractually obligated to be there, and it was clear that they did not want to. But going around and seeing what else is there, what other people are getting away with, led us to using those wire walls where we could put more stuff on, because going up means that you can get more of your things there. Garb. Oh, I have a whole section on garb. Look at that. I say must wear your garb. Fancy it up. Regalia is a plus. Why? Because everybody loves a princess. Kids love princesses and princes. That's a thing. Even if you have a baronial stuff, they love it. They ask about it. Specifically, they ask about it, which is, again, an in toward getting them to your stuff. Crossover garb is great if it's SCA skew. Oh, LGBTQ. Okay, so where did you get the wire walls? We got them from Amazon. Yeah, we got short ones and large ones. I believe they cost around $100 a pack. I think the small ones were 50 to 75, and the large ones were like 100 to 120. We had the Barony pay for them. They sit in my garage at the moment since I had the thing, and I have a minivan, so I can drag most of the stuff there. We also have a list fence that we bring, like you saw, only some parts of it, obviously, but wooden parts. So those also go in my minivan. But Amazon has lots of stuff. Amazon has arrows. Amazon has bows. Amazon has, I don't think they have crossbows. If you can find a crossbow though, wire wrap that to a wall. You don't want people messing with it. But they love looking at it and touching it. Pet the crossbow. It's so pretty. Oh, LBGTQ. Okay. So last year we had a thing where people wanted strongly to have an LGBTQ banner. But in my opinion, and you may make your own determination on this, I'm not saying either way is wrong, but in my determination, we are not specifically an LGBTQ organization, even if we are inclusive to elements of LGBTQ. What I told them was that if they had pins or ribbons, they should wear those on their garb, and many people decided to do that. I thought that was appropriate because it gave people the nod that we were indeed allies, if you choose to be, and that people were open with that. I know people wear blue feathers at times. That's usually an SCA to SCA person facing symbol. Crowding the booth with all of your people means that nobody else can get in there and see your stuff. If you have too many people in your booth, no one will come in to see the things that you want them to see. If you have a small entrance, which we kind of did with the barrier that we put up, having somebody blocking an entrance so people can't get in or leave is bad in either case. Okay. So now I have 3 minutes. Phrases to use. I found all of these work wonderful. Do you want a closer look? Often, there are no upfront costs. Practice is open to everyone. Yes, there are many families. Yes, we have a chapter there too. These are all things that people need to know. Phrases not to use. Broken stair things. This group wronged me, and I see that you are from there. So that will probably be your local group, but you're going to want to go to this nearby group that's way more welcoming. Please don't do that. You're trashing the SCA. Bashing the SCA corporate. Don't bash the SCA corporate. There's no reason to bring the SCA corporate into a booth at any point. You're not there promoting SCA corporate. You're there promoting the SCA lifestyle. I don't know. All the fun things of the SCA. That's what you're promoting. Nobody is passionate about corporate. Bring your passion, the thing that you love. Any naked story, do your best to hold that inside. That's just do your best. Do your best to hold it inside. Staffing demographics. You know what? I'm going to punt that to the next class. JC, are you going to be here? Hopefully, we'll see. Former Scadians. The last thing I will say is former Scadians will come up to your booth if they are disgruntled. If they used to do it, but they aren't disgruntled, but they don't do it anymore. They did it in college and then they got away from it because they moved. The disgruntled ones are the only ones you really need to handle with kitten gloves. I have empathize and re-engage. And I have things that I have personally said that have helped other people. The SCA is full of traditions, but a lot of changes were implemented to combat that very thing. Doesn't matter what that thing was. We have made changes to combat those things. If you still have an interest in medieval history, come back. We are not those people. Those people who wronged you have moved on or were pushed out of the SCA. Hopefully that's true, and hopefully you weren't the one specifically who wronged them. I'd be willing to bet I know where that story ends up, but maybe a tamer story as an intro. This was the Naked Spaghetti story, which I had to cut that guy off in a booth of other people because he was an actual Scadian who was telling stories about the SCA to other people, but not part of our display. It's okay to let people gently know you are in charge. It is your event, and you are the face of your group trying to get other people to see how cool the thing we do is. Don't let other people hijack that. Make them do tamer stories that are still amazing. And that is the first hour class. Oh, how do you follow up? Do you have a newbie revel? We don't. Okay, so we're going to go over some of that. I will say that we have a mechanism when people want to sign up that was suggested the first time. We used to have a Google form that people it only had 2 lines, your email address and your zip code. Then we would collate all those email addresses and zip codes, and we tell them we're only going to email you back one time. We're not going to harass you, but if you actually have an interest, we want you to do that. You can always tell when somebody was pressured into doing it because they give a fake email, and they're obviously fake. But the zip code tells us on the SCA homepage where their local group is, and a lot of them are here, but I mean, it's 50,000 people. They come from all over the country and potentially all over the world to come to this event and see their person. I think we had Doctor Who people last year. This year we have Marvel people coming and Star Wars people. Bye, Patches. So we collate that data and we send their information to the chatelaine of their group with a short introduction. Hey, we heard you went to an SCA booth at AwesomeCon. If you're interested in more information, here's some more information. Now we use a QR code and point them to that. It lets us track things a little bit easier. We also have, a sign-up sheet where you can do that too, if they don't have the ability on you. But most people have their cell phones, and they will just scan a QR code. It will take them exactly where they need to go. They punch a couple buttons, and we get that same information. We also get counts.